Got some crazy hair going on. How y'all guys? This is Joey. So I am trying not to feel discouraged because this hat is on all crazy. Because I made a video yesterday to get no views, but I do want to be helpful. So I have dermatomyositis, all sorts of other autoimmune conditions, rheumatoid arthritis, scleroderma, Sjorgen syndrome. Okay, but the big one is dermatomyositis. And so I over the past 6 months stopped taking medicine because it's making me sick. Frustrated with my doctors who just keep giving me stronger medications and stronger medications. I've tried to find other ways to get help, and I've been feeling a lot better. One of those main reasons is Dr. Berg, and I'm going to go over a video that he made called "How to Put Your Autoimmune Disease in Remission." Now, he's made a lot of videos with similar things, and there's different things that he talks about, different ways to target the autoimmune disease. And I'll point out that one thing that he doesn't do is say, weaken your immune system. In my mind, my immune system's fine in terms of strength. It's confused. From what I've learned from Dr. Berg, my immune system is confused because of the leaky gut, because of viruses or whatever. Now, I like the leaky gut method of attack the best. And I'm going to talk about that more. But today we're going to be talking about a virus and getting the proper things necessary to treat it as a viral infection. I hope that makes sense. I hope I'm doing it justice. Okay. So let's get into the video. Let me put it so it's like this.
Let's talk about how one would put their autoimmune disease into remission. Of course, we can't say cure, but we can say remission. It's called spontaneous remission. I've done a lot of videos on autoimmune diseases, but I recently found some fascinating new information I want to share with you, because if you have an autoimmune disease and you want to put it in remission, you need all the data. You need to know this one very important fact. There's been some recent research finding a huge link between this virus, Epstein-Barr virus, and many of the autoimmune diseases. Now,
we need the Epstein list. In this case, it's the Epstein-Barr virus list.
Here's the thing. You might say, well, this doesn't apply to me. Well, guess what? 90% of the population has had Epstein-Barr virus. But here's the thing. The unique thing about the Epstein-Barr virus that's different from a lot of other viruses, it can go in the remission, okay? It can kind of go away, and it can also come out of remission. In other words, it goes in this dormancy state where it just kind of sits there and waits for the right environment. And see, normally when your immune system is exposed to a virus, your immune system fights it off, it develops antibodies, and now it has an immunity against that virus. But the Epstein-Barr virus is different. Epstein-Barr virus has this ability to infect certain immune cells and actually reprogram them and alter their function. You see, normally it's really our own proteins that can turn on or turn off certain genes. But with this Epstein-Barr virus, it can actually bypass that and alter our genes, unfortunately. So it makes this protein which can bind and control your genes and actually trigger autoimmune diseases.
Yeah, I had no idea about this, and I've been reading and studying a lot about autoimmune diseases, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be easy for me to follow. And then he brings up something totally different. So, but the good news is that a lot of the treatments are very similar to treating a leaky gut and things like that.
If the right environment occurs. Let me explain what I mean by that. When we're talking about autoimmune diseases, there's a certain immune cell called the T helper cell 17 that's always involved in autoimmune diseases. And without trying to get into the details of that, all you need to know is that this cell can either protect you against autoimmune diseases or creating a situation where it can cause an autoimmune disease with how it deals with inflammation. And whether it protects you or harms you, it really depends on the environment of that T cell, the environment, which is really related to your epigenetics. So this explains why some people develop autoimmune diseases and some people don't, even though they're exposed to Epstein-Barr virus. Like I said before, 90% of the population has been exposed to Epstein-Barr virus.
So I think it's like, from what I understand, it's like you have this Epstein-Barr virus. If it is in remission, you're good. But if it comes out of remission, and then you have this T helper cell 17 that is pathogenic, and then you also have the perfect storm of stress, low vitamin D, low zinc, history of drug abuse, things like that, then that's what could potentially create an autoimmune disease. Now, that would go against the leaky gut hypothesis. So it's kind of throwing a monkey wrench into my thinking here, but I'm going to go along and see what happens here.
It is one of the most common viruses that we're exposed to. So we are going to talk about how to create an environment to bulletproof yourself and keep these autoimmune diseases in remission. It's called the kissing disease. Okay, this is why probably a lot of people get it in high school. It can create what's called infectious mononucleosis, which affects your lymph nodes, your throat, a fever. It can be really nasty. I had it in high school, of course, after kissing someone, and it was just devastating. It literally couldn't breathe, and I think it lasted for 2 weeks, and it was terrible. But it's not highly contagious, okay? But it does spread through saliva, blood, semen. And it's also a herpes virus 4. And like I said before, it can stay dormant for years and never come out of remission.
Crazy.
Or it can come out of remission when you have this perfect storm, which I want to discuss right now. So this is the environment, right? So the reason why certain people get it and other people don't, it really has to do with their own integrity, their resistance to fight this thing off, how strong their immune system is, and then how great the external stress is as well. So stress has a...
So like if you're looking at this and you have autoimmune disease and you're a man, which ones apply to you? I have very, very low vitamin D, very, very low zinc my whole life. A ton of stress, unneeded stress, a big history of drug abuse, and the stress of pregnancy. Not me, because men can't get pregnant, but my wife was recently pregnant too. So got all of that.
A lot to do with the triggering effect because the high level of cortisol can paralyze the immune system. One of the biggest stresses out of all the stresses is bereavement, which is a loss, and you're grieving after a major loss. So the greater the loss, the more the stress, the more it can trigger an autoimmune disease. And I've talked about this in other videos. In fact, it's like 1-for-1. My patients, they developed an autoimmune disease after a stress event. So we have stress. We also have another interesting thing that can happen, gut radiation. So let's say you had radiation.
Microsoft just laid off 1,500 people blaming the AI wave. You could be at risk for a layoff if you don't use AI to your advantage.
You got to use AI, guys.
Of your abdomen or a CAT scan. That can alter your microbiome and create dysbiosis and set you up for an autoimmune disease. Let's say, for example, you had an antibiotic. It can create dysbiosis, and that can also be a trigger. Or let's say you consume a lot of foods with glyphosate, like in GMO foods. That can alter your gut microbiome. And then
that's kind of good that he's talking about gut diseases, how it is somewhat related. And make no mistake about it, like our diets in the Western world are total crap. So I imagine we're at heightened risk through that.
Set you up for having this autoimmune disease, especially if you had Epstein-Barr virus in the past. And also nutritional factors. Let's say you're low in vitamin D
Totally.
or zinc,
Totally.
and then you go through a stress event, right? You're going to be very vulnerable to developing one of these conditions. There's also certain drugs. There's also steroids. There's even the stress of pregnancy.
What I understand as drugs too is illicit drugs. Probably could be, prescription drugs too, or even prescription drug abuse. Yeah, and I don't know what specific drugs, but marijuana. I have a history of using that, and some, like prescription like Ritalin, and yeah, I think that has a big thing. Probably hard to think about sometimes because I'm ashamed of it. I don't do it anymore, but perhaps that had a big impact in why this perfect storm was created, and that's something that I could probably speak to more of than Dr. Berg. Maybe he doesn't know the different types of drugs, but if anyone has any experience with that, put it down in the comments because I'm interested, and it's a very difficult subject to bring up. It's just you feel ashamed that you caused all these health problems because of drug use, but I'm sure that has to play a role in it.
See, that can set you up for an autoimmune disease. What's interesting in
That's women.
amount, but there are certain autoimmune diseases that can be triggered, indirectly in other videos, which I'll put a link down below, that can set you up for this perfect storm to develop an autoimmune disease. But let's just dive into what to do to put this autoimmune disease into remission permanently. So here's the plan. We don't want to just focus on inflammation and the autoimmune disease. We want to focus on this Epstein-Barr virus, okay?
And I think that's the difference is rather than focusing on like, oh, we have all this inflammation, how do we reduce the inflammation? We're focusing on the specific cause. That's why I like this. That's why I like Dr. Berg so much, because he's focusing on the cause, whether it's leaky gut or the Epstein list, the Epstein-Barr virus list. We're focusing on the root cause, and it just feels like it's more effective, in my opinion, rather than just taking a methotrexate, rather than taking a Cellcept or taking hydroxychloroquine. That makes me feel incredibly sick. That makes me still feel very tired. That's just weakening my immune system, but the root cause is still there. Does that make sense?
Because this is new information. Because if we can just let's say assume that's involved.
And another thing, I'm sorry to cut you off, Dr. Berg. And I'm just giving my personal experience, and he's the expert. But these theories, these are brand new. In terms of medicine, the last 10, 20, 30 years. I don't know. I'm doing this with my hand. These discoveries are brand new, and so it's not like a clear, straightforward thing. Like, okay, do this. It's still trying to pinpoint where to go. So it seems like it's a lot of work on the patient, on my part, on other people's part, on doctors' parts to really pinpoint what the issue is. So we got to do our work because we want to stay alive for our children. We want to stay alive for our loved ones.
Then we have a different strategy, and we can focus in on something that can actually greatly help you. So we want to put this Epstein-Barr virus back into remission.
Woo!
And one of the best ways to do it is to, of course, drop your stress level as much as possible. Isolate exactly what's really stressing you out and do whatever you can to minimize that stress, at least lower it. That's going to help. There's a test called an HRV test, heart rate variability test. HeartMath is an app and a device that you can get to measure heart rate variability. And the reason I like this test is it measures the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. It'll give you data about this information and tell you how much parasympathetic you have, which is your recovery, versus how much sympathetic, which is your stress. And it's very interesting because some people might not even feel that they're in sympathetic dominant, but they were, and they have basically no parasympathetic. And
That's what, I ignored this part the first time, but I wonder, I got to get that and really check it out, because I wonder myself, I've been, quite stressed, a lot of stressful things in my life. Man, I wonder.
they're more at risk for having their immune system lowered to pollen a virus. So this is a good test to just give you feedback to know where you're at. And I will put a link down below of HeartMath if you wanted to get one of those. Now, some other things to help lower the stress and to put this Epstein-Barr virus back into where it needs to belong is vitamin B1. A good amount of B1 is very, very important. Potassium and
B1 vitamin. So that should be very easily findable. And we've talked about folate. Got to get folate. So all the B vitamins are pretty much important, but it seems like right now it's B1, B6, B12, B9. So like 3, 6, 9, and 1. Yeah, right. 6, 9, 12, and 1. But that's the first I've heard. I don't know how the B1 vitamins are different. The B vitamins are different, but I don't know if it would make sense to just buy a B multivitamin, or like what dose you need for the B vitamin. That's my question. We're going to talk about the vitamin D dosage. I talked in an early video about magnesium, but vitamin K. And so in taking so many vitamins, one concern I have is like, how are they going to mix? How are they going to affect, especially compared to any like antidepressant that you might be taking or any other medicine that you're taking. So I would just say, do your due diligence, write them down. And I'm going to make a video where I write all the vitamins that I take, the daily dosage, and then maybe any effects that I have on them. So B1 and then vitamin K / magnesium. I don't know. Are they the same thing? I don't know.
and magnesium, vital, and vitamin D, and in high doses, at least 40,000 IUs.
I'm sorry to cut you off again so much, Dr. Berg. When we talk about vitamin D, and this is something I learned from Dr. Berg, I take 50,000 IUs a day. And that seems like way too much. And some people have been like, I only take 50,000 a week. I take 1 a week. But from what I've seen from Dr. Berg, you want to take that every day, 40,000. They're hard to find. Make sure you're getting the right dose, because most vitamin D, it's like 100 or like 1,000 IUs a day. That's not enough. It needs to be, the pill I have is 50,000 IUs. Okay. Make sure it's IU and not the micrograms. Okay. And take a very, very high dosage. And I would say personally, if you're going to take just one vitamin, one supplement, it would be vitamin D at a high dose.
That's going to take inflammation away, and it's also going to help put this Epstein-Barr virus back in remission. If you also add a good amount of zinc, I would take no less than 50 milligrams of zinc every day. So these are two most important things to take. Aerobic exercise versus other types of exercise. Aerobic exercise gives you a lot of oxygen.
Okay.
It helps.
So he goes into some other things, and it's stuff that I think I can just speak to here, and I'll leave a link to the video. But exercise, start with probiotics, okay, too. So like yogurt, fermented foods. There's a reason why so many cultures use like sauerkraut, kimchi, things that are pickled, I think, that have like fermented things, yogurt. You want to take those, and also a probiotic. So you want to fill your gut with, and again, this goes back to gut health, which I'm happy about. You want to fill your gut with good things so you can get them growing and like protecting your gut. When you have these viruses, they kill all the bad stuff. Or when you're eating bullshit like I am. Okay, no more ice cream for breakfast. So probiotics. And he talks about this better in other videos, but fasting. That's something that I struggled with. When I first started fasting, man, it was like immediate feeling good when I got into keto. But the problem is culture, especially depending on what culture you are. I'm partially from a Latino culture, and the insistence on eating food, whether or not it's something you should eat, is like a struggle. And so you might be from a communal culture where they're like, ay, Joey no está comiendo. Like, oh my God, shut up. And you might feel intense pressure to eat in a community-based scenario, or you're the only one, you know, in a big group of people and you're the only one not eating. It could be stressful too. And so fasting, I understand how that's difficult, but when you can get into keto, fasting is easier. Get into keto, and keto is so difficult for me. To be on keto is to be hungry. There's never enough food. You always feel hungry. But I would highly, in my personal experience, fasting was like, boom, got it, good. So vitamin D and fasting, because you're not filling your gut with any food, it's able to heal itself. And also the ketones are anti-inflammatory. They're going to help you. They're going to help build your stomach up better. Then they're going to be able to help any like remission viruses or whatever. And Dr. Berg says that way better than I do. So fasting is great, but you should probably watch a different video on fasting. Okay. And then omega-3s are huge. Get the fish oil. It's just, I hate taking them. They're two big ass fish pills. Just take it. If my wife cooks salmon, oh my God, that's freaking amazing. Salmon is so good. So I highly recommend eating salmon from United States, caught in the United States. And then he talks about PMGs, which I can't speak on. So I'm going to let him, our very, very important doctor, Dr. Berg, talk about the PMGs.
Use this as a strategy. Okay. And this is how it would work. Let's say you had, for example, Hashimoto's. That's of your thyroid gland. You have antibodies that are attacking your own thyroid gland. Okay. You would take their product for the thyroid because it has the PMGs in it, and you would take one before bed. And what's going to happen when you take it before bed, it's going to go into the stomach, and the antibodies are going to attack that decoy and leave your thyroid alone. Okay. And then the next night you would do it again. Next night you would do it again. And you do that for about 3 months. So whatever type of autoimmune disease you have, whether MS, which is in the brain, which is neurotrophin PMG, or you have type 1 diabetes, which is antibodies against your own pancreas. In that case, you would take pancreatrophin PMG. So this is the little X factor, the additional strategy that you could also try. And you'll have to do your own research to find out where you can buy these PMGs. I think you can pretty much get all of them online right now, or find a practitioner that uses standard process.
Dang, my computer's running so slowly. Yeah, that might be something that we do a separate video on, because he mentions PMGs, but like I have dermatomyositis, like what type of PMG would I take? It's not something that you could really just go online and buy. Like you really have to research it. And it's really frustrating about doctors in America. You know, you can't just go to a doctor, and I feel anyway that you can't just go to a doctor and be like, give me some PMGs, doc. And they're gonna be like, okay. You know, they might not want to do that. They might just want to pump you with medicine and make as much money off you as they can. So I think we need to do a follow-up on PMGs, but it's like a decoy. It's like, oh, this is mimicking this, and they're going to attack it, and your whole body is scot-free. I wish I could do that with my wife, like have a decoy of someone who leaves his socks in the couch. And then instead of like my wife yelling at me for leaving my dirty socks in the couch, that she yells at the decoy. I need a PMG for my life. Okay. So anyway, that's all the video today. I love Dr. Berg. He has, changed so many things. And again, I have dermatomyositis. You can't even really see it right now because of some of the supplements I've been taking, specifically vitamin D3, 50,000 AUs. Do it right now. Do it right now. Right now. I'm gonna wait. And I'd be happy if I get like 1 or 2 views in this video. All right. See you guys.